I guess you already talked about how there's lots of different sites that do your micro loans, and you've already talked about your competitive advantage as opposed to the other 10,000s. But what do you think your competitive advantage is in your new company that you're starting comparatively to the other entrepreneurs?
I like these questions. Yeah. So let me clarify one thing. There are when we started, there were no other sites like Kiva, and the 10,000 other microfinance institutions. A small percentage of them have websites where you actually can even donate online, let alone lend. I mean, there are some definitely competitor sites at this point, but especially in the social sector, but I kind of think this way for everything. It's great to see other organizations crop up and maybe focus on a different type of community, have some sort of differentiation that brings more people into this very positive activity in the world. So for Kiva, there aren't 10,000 others that are, I mean, those 10,000 other microfinance institutions are who we try to champion and like showcase on the site, and we want them to continue to grow, and we highlight them. So there are, yeah, why don't I pause there? Because I'll end up talking about the same kinds of organizations anyway, answering the second part of your question, and which is, what's our competitive advantage now with ProFounder? So to map the landscape a little bit, so as I said, if you are an entrepreneur that's starting a small business or doing a startup or running a small business or something, and you need to raise, for now, let's even just keep it to under $1 million, you can go to a bank, but loans and lines of credit are way down. I mean, it's kind of depressing. Don't research this stuff and learn the statistics unless you really want to be a little bit sad. SBA loans are down too, and there are a lot of great new initiatives coming up, but still, that's one source that can be a fit, sometimes isn't, and they are definitely down. VCs, venture capitalists, and professional angel investors, they want to invest in certain types of businesses, and not all of them, not all of the startups out there and small businesses are the ones that they would target. Like VCs I don't want to speak for them too much, but the way they do investing, they'll invest in maybe 100 different companies and be excited if a small handful of those have super high returns. So it's a different kind of investing that they do, and they're looking for the next Google or something, right? They're not looking for a really solid, profitable yoga studio down the street necessarily, right? That only has ambitions to have 1 or 2 locations ever, because it's a business where the entrepreneur wants to have a life, and right? So there's not always a fit with those funding sources that might instantly come to mind. So to really focus in on what that entrepreneur would do and where they might look for, in terms of other resources that we, ProFounder, could see as competitors. So Prosper.com, it's peer-to-peer lending for profit. You can go and get a personal loan. You can get that up to $25,000, but you're personally liable. It's not for your business. It's a loan, not an investment. So for the contributors, the lenders and/or for ProFounder, the investors, on Prosper, there's no dynamic upside. So it's a risk-return sort of scenario. That could be great. Maybe you don't want necessarily an option to have a dynamic higher upside, but it is what it is. So that's a difference. So there are a lot of things that make that, you can call it a competitor. I think it's yet another option that maybe it's not quite the same thing. And for the record, Chris Larson, the CEO and founder of that, is one of our investors in ProFounder. So it's certainly not competitive outright. So that's one thing that's kind of in the same space. A lot of people say, oh, well, I'll just go to Kiva. Again, I'm a fan of Kiva, but you can't go sign yourself up. It's a little bit of a longer process, and you sort of have to back into it. Like, if you need a loan, a microloan, you work with one of those microfinance institutions, and then maybe they'll post you on Kiva one day, but it's a longer process. There are other sites like Kickstarter, right? That is for projects and ideas, and it's a beautiful site, really straightforward and simple. The average raise on that site is, in the I guess 4 digits, so maybe $5,000, $7,000 at most, something like that. You have these anomalies. You've seen, if you follow this, there's some organizations, or not organizations, individuals, and their ideas and their projects that have raised tens of thousands of dollars, or there's one that I know, at least one that raised like $1 million. So there's some anomalies there, but they're donations. So for the person with, that let's say $100 that wants to go do something fun or good in the world, you can donate it, and it goes away, and it's great, and you might get that non-financial social return, which I'm a total fan of, and that's, you can go to your Kickstarters or your United Ways or your Red Crosses or whatever you want to do to donate. A lot of options. We all know that. You can lend. There are options for that too. You might get your money back. You might get your money back plus some. But to actually invest in something that you're excited about, one of your classmates' businesses, or that yoga studio down the street that you want to see exist, that you want to go to every week, if you really want to invest in something and have the option for a dynamic upside, like maybe the yoga studio will really grow quickly and have high revenues, and you'll make a lot of money back, and there'll be the financial as well as the social return. And in fact, there's a lot of touchy-feely stuff to talk about here about that dynamic return where you do well as the business does well, and as the business struggles, maybe you don't make as much back as you thought you would. So that opportunity to dynamically participate in an entrepreneur's story, ProFounder is the only one doing that particular thing for, and this is where I don't want to get too complicated, but for unaccredited and unsophisticated investors. And these are legal terms, not mine. But the short answer is, to invest in a private company, the reason that it's so hard to invest in a startup before it goes public, or invest, and then it probably wouldn't be a startup, or invest in a great small business nearby, it's because there's no open public stock market to do so. So you have to be invited in and be a part of that community. So there's really no other way online to be a part of those opportunities. And so it's a new space. Maybe there'll be new competitors in the near future. We'll see. As a really long answer, but I hope it's helpful in kind of understanding what's out there. For us, we think right now we're doing our very best to be a user-centered company, to design around the people that we are. We're centering everything around, which we're pro-founder, right? The entrepreneur and their needs and what they require to kind of get this investment round done. So I think that will always serve us well, and we'll see how we're differentiated in the future if there are others that are doing something right in the same space. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Are you sure? You looked a little hesitant.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.